So yeah, let's get into how would you actually go ahead and do your revenue forecasting within ProNovos. So what I have pulled up here is our revenue forecasting tool. And the first thing you'll see is you can select the year. So this is really good, right? You can plan out not only what your revenue is going to be through the rest of 2023, but if you want to start looking at 2024, 2025, however far out you might want to start looking at revenue, you can kind of select the year and look at it on an annual basis. And on the left here, what you're going to see are a few different KPIs. So the top one's going to be, hey, what's my total projected revenue? And when we consider what our projected revenue is, there's usually those two main buckets. What do I currently have in my backlog? What are the jobs I have under contract, right? I know I'm going to earn that revenue at some point. It's just a question of when will I earn that revenue? And then the second bucket, and I think this is probably the trickier one for contractors to navigate, is the prospective jobs. What are the jobs I'm chasing? You're going to face the same obstacles as the backlog jobs, right? You know, when are those projects going to go? When am I going to earn the revenue? The prospective jobs have an extra layer of complexity in terms of which ones am I actually going to win? So when we look at our total projected revenue, what we're doing here is we're combining what revenue do I think I'm going to do for my backlog, in addition to what revenue do I think I'm going to pick up in additional prospective jobs.
Kevin, let me just ask you, just to clarify any terminology. Sometimes people refer to backlog as contracts that haven't started, but you've been awarded. Here, what we're saying is your backlog are any jobs that are active, right? And we are including jobs that you're contracted, that you're currently executing, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So if I have a $5 million job and I'm 20% into it, I have 1 million in revenue to date, and then my remaining backlog is 4 million. So that's what we're looking at here. It's jobs that you have a physical contract for, a legal obligation to perform. What's that contract amount and what's remaining on that contract that you know you'll get paid for at some point.
So it doesn't matter if you started the job, but you have been awarded I think you said you have an obligation to perform the work. Doesn't matter if you started or not, right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, yeah. Cool. And prospective jobs, that's really saying this is your pipeline. So it's more around business development.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is where you get a little bit into the art versus the science. You know, I think I've seen some contractors be very diligent about it. Hey, the only jobs we're going to include in the perspective are ones that we've actually physically sent bids out for, that we think we have a high probability of winning. Other contractors I see, they say, okay, you know, we're kind of in the early days. We've been asked to bid on this project. We don't know if we're going to get it yet, but we still like to include it in our prospective jobs. So that's really where you get more into the art of the revenue projections, is what gets included in that prospective job list.
Got it.
And we'll get into that in a little more detail. Yeah. Right. The other thing I always like to point out here is you also have the ability to set a target. You know, I think it's one of those truisms in life that, you know, you don't achieve anything unless you set a goal, an objective. So kind of knowing what your target, what your goal is for the year is a really good way to kind of track, okay, between our backlog, between our prospective jobs, do we have enough in the pipeline to meet our target? And then what you'll see here on the right is a visual that kind of shows how the backlog and prospective jobs are tracking against that target. So I've got my backlog in blue, my prospective in a light green, and I can kind of see how that stacks up against my target here. So right now, based on what I'm currently tracking, I'm going to meet my target revenue in September. So it looks like it's going to be a very good year for me based on kind of what I'm showing right now if I get these prospective jobs.
So on the right-hand side, as you're moving, I see the list of jobs. And as you said, the blue bar, that's showing what we have actually, what's the blue bar again?
Yeah, so the blue bar is going to be the backlog. And then, or it's going to be your backlog projects. And then the kind of the lighter green bar is going to be your prospective jobs. So as I hover over the months here, what you're going to see on the right is it's going to update. So that gray bar, that reflects the actual backlog amount on the contract, right? So as I kind of go from July to August, I can see that backlog switch over into revenue that I'm projecting to earn. So it's going to give you a sense of what are the most critical projects for you to meet your revenue target in a given year. And I think this is something that is really good as a contractor to understand is chances are, right, you're going to be doing dozens, if not hundreds of projects over the course of a year. Understanding from a strategic level, hey, which of these projects are most important to us hitting our revenue goals, especially the prospective ones, which ones do we really want to go after hard, which ones are important for us to win to make sure we hit our targets. It's a really good way to kind of make sure that you're focusing your attention on the projects that are most critical to your strategic objectives.
Love it. Love it. Real quick, the target you talked about in this example, it's 14 million, but there's also an art and a science in coming up with a target. We have several clients that what they want to do is focus on what gross profit margin they like to maintain. And it is, hey, after our overhead and everything, this is the margin that we want. But right now, whatever target a company wants to set, you're not, whatever dollar value, you can just enter that. There's no limitations around that, is there?
Yep. So yeah, you could just click in here. And if I wanted to enter a new target, I could change that to 20, 25 million, whatever I need to. And to your point, a lot of contractors kind of back into that saying, hey, what's our target profit for the year? Or another way we see it done a lot is understanding what your overhead is, right? And then kind of saying, okay, if our overhead is X and our gross profit on average is 5%, 8%, what's the total revenue that we need to do at minimum to make sure we cover our overhead? So there's a lot of different ways you can come up with that target. Some people say, hey, I want to do a 20% growth year over year compared to what I did in the prior year. It really depends on in terms of how you want to approach your financial planning in terms of how you want to come up with that target number there.